What can I do for you?
Well, Ollie, while we're sitting here waiting for real life, you think you know so much about comedy.
I don't think I know.
I got some questions for you.
Lay them on me.
Okay. Ollie, how many Stooges were there over the decades? Big shot.
Obviously, they call themselves the Three Stooges. There were three.
Wrong, Ollie.
That was rigged. All right. There was a television comedian who was personally mentored by Buster Keaton. She appeared in films with both the Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges. Name this comedian.
Those are some friends of mine. I know Buster, and I know Charlie. He never shared any of his broads with me. Can you give me a hint?
Betty White, Mary Tyler Moore, or Carol Burnett.
Oh, I remember Carol Burnett now. I'm guessing Carol Burnett. Ollie! That was
Turnabout
mean.
is fair play.
That was mean.
Turnabout is fair play.
Okay. I got one for you now.
Bring it on.
Okay. Which was the only comedy team that was related? And it wasn't us.
It wasn't.
Thank
I will
God.
say Babbitt and Costello.
Wrong.
Numbskull, I got one for you. Which comedian is the only one to be born in the United States? Was it Charlie Chaplin, or was it you?
That's so easy. Wasn't me. It's got to be our old friend Charlie. That was not good.
Give me one more.
Okay. Which comedian said of the talkies that it wouldn't last more than 6 months, and maybe after a year at most, they'd be dead?
Whoever said that obviously didn't know what he was talking about. I'm gonna go with you.
Wasn't me. It wasn't very smart.
My final question for you. There was a comedian who passed away 3 days after Elvis Presley in 1977. The media was so wrapped up in Elvis, they did not pay much attention to this comedian. Name him.
Oh, I liked Elvis. Elvis got a lot of girls. I wonder if it's our old pal, Lou Costello. That's not fair.
Do you have any more questions for me?
No, I don't. In fact, I don't want to sit in this chair anymore.
There are no more questions.
Can we go?
That's another fine mess you've gotten us into.
Well, Frank, let's hope that these chairs aren't rigged.
I think we're good.
Okay. So.
Looks good to me, so.
Okay. Do you think that Our audience out there is ready for any more slapstick madness?
I think the key word here is madness. Absolutely, absolutely. Slapstick comedy. How can you actually get enough of that? There's no way.
I know.
This is the kind of thing you can watch all day long.
I love
The whole idea of slapstick is that it is just so over the top and so exaggerated and so visual. That's what just makes it so funny. There's
And
no
so violent. Fake violence, but
There have been people who have been saying for decades that the Three Stooges have caused more injuries than they were worth. But the thing about it is that slapstick, there is just no way that any slapstick joke would work if any of the characters involved had an IQ over 3, because
yeah, I know.
everything just has to rely totally on that. Like those two chuckleheads that were asking each other those questions, they didn't even have the right answers. They were asking each other these questions, and they were giving each other these options, and none of them
I
were
know.
right. So
That's true.
let's show them how it's done.
Okay.
Let's show them how it's done.
Let's hope you put the right answers in here this time.
I think they did. I
Okay.
think we did. So
All right, so I'll go first. So which
Take it away.
silent film comedian is the only one born in America? Charlie Chaplin, Stan Laurel, or Oliver Hardy?
I'm gonna go with Oliver Hardy. Oh,
Okay, Oliver
There we
Hardy.
go.
That was the right one.
that was right. I'd say Chaplin and Stan Laurel, they both grew up in England. In fact,
Okay.
Laurel was Charlie Chaplin's understudy at one point.
Right. Okay.
So there was a comedian who said, I give the talkies 6 months more, and at the most 1 year, and then they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Any guesses as to which one was that?
Yes, it's got to be one that wasn't on there yesterday. last
Absolutely.
time. Oh my God! Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin it was.
Yes.
Yeah. Chaplin
It had to be
absolutely hated
Chaplin.
the idea of sound in films.
Yeah. I know. That's true. Okay, which comedian died only 3 days after Elvis in August 1977? And there was very little coverage of this.
Well, either way you look at it, you have to feel bad for whoever it was,
I know.
because all 4 of these guys are absolutely legendary. But I'll go with Groucho Max, and I'm glad I did.
It was the Groucho. So say the magic word. He had the great show too.
All right. There were a lot of slapstick comedy teams that were actually family acts, but out of these 3 right here, Laurel and Hardy, Three Stooges, and Marx Brothers, who was not related?
I would say the Laurel and Hardy, actually.
Laurel and Hardy it was.
Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah. They were not related.
Nope.
Three Stooges, they were brothers. Marx
Yeah.
Brothers were brothers.
They're definitely brothers.
So.
Yes. Crazy brothers. Okay. And over the decades, how many actors in total made up the Three Stooges?
Well, definitely at least 4, because
Right.
you have you have Curly and Shemp, and I know that after Shemp left, that there was a sort of a new Curly, and I think there were a couple of them, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm going to go with 6.
Okay.
And let's see here. I'm glad that I did, because there were 2 additional
6.
beyond the 4 that
Yeah.
everyone knows. Everyone knows Mo, Larry, Curly, and Shemp, but there was Curly Joe DeRita, and there was Joe Besser, and both of them were hired because they were Curly lookalikes. But
Right.
I mean, to be fair, they did the best they could, but there's
There-
only one.
only one
ever will
Curly.
be one Curly. That's
Yep.
for sure.
I know. All right, which comedian starred in slapstick films with the Three Stooges and the Marx Brothers and had Buster Keaton as her personal mentor?
I would love to be able to say it was Carol Burnett.
I know.
Because she was so legendary with her sketch comedy.
She was
Donna
incredible.
Reed, she was she was good in her own right, but I would have to go with either Lucille Ball or Betty White, because the 2 of them are the ones who have the longevity.
That's
So,
right.
seeing as how Lucille Ball is known as the slapstick queen,
Yes,
yes, it was
Lucille Ball.
Lucille Ball.
Yeah.
So, to take a look at some famous comedians from the slapstick era and a couple of clips from all of them. Harry Langdon is probably one of the lesser known, one of the lesser remembered from the time, but he is the one who really defined the idea of running away from home to join the circus, because that's exactly what he did at the age of 12.
Wow, I didn't know that.
He worked for Max Sennett. His heyday was the 1920s. And his trademark, his on-screen persona, was having this baby face that you see right here, the wide eyes, the innocent grin, the very childlike demeanor. Unfortunately for him, that's not the way he was in real life, meaning that he got his, from what they say, his ego got carried away. He actually tried his hand at directing and didn't exactly manage. It did not work out very well, no. So they tried that, but and then the sound era, once the talkies came in, his career.
He was very
unfortunately
athletic,
was
though, as we're going to see in this clip. He
very
was
agile, very agile, which you have to be for slapstick.
I know, they all were. It's amazing. They all probably could have been athletes in any other sport at the time if they wanted to, or some sports anyway.
I bet a number of them were. You see the Three Stooges playing. Pretty much a compilation of different segments of Harry Langdon's films from throughout his career. But throughout all of them, the one consistent thing is that he plays this innocent, childlike man.
Yeah, he does. Like an innocent, man that's sort of like, almost like acting like a kid in a grown-up body.
Yeah.
Like,
and that's what he went for. I mean, and if something works for you, milk it for all it's worth. In the acting profession, whether it's a certain trademark or a certain persona, and for him, it was being the, as you said, the man trapped in the little boy trapped in the man's body.
And the girls and the women all fell for him,
literally falling. As you can see here, literally falling.
Literally falling, I know.
That's one of his.
This is one of the best ones.
This is one of his most famous ones.
This is the one, where he goes up the stairs and he's. It's funny because there's one where he goes up the stairs and then he goes up the ladder backwards.
Well, and the premise of so many of the early slapstick comedians was that there's alcohol involved, and you have to wonder would that be as prevalent these days as a source of humor? And maybe it would be, but whether it was stumbling around because you've been drinking, or carrying a semi-conscious person up the stairs and in a slapstick way, missing each step or falling over because of the body weight, the dead weight. But
either that or there were drugs that we didn't know about back then. I don't know.
To wait for the autobiographies to find out
That's
that one.
right.
But that's one thing about slapstick. You got the pratfalls, you got the buffoonery, you got and like I said earlier, you have the complete and total lack of common sense. There's always a panic-stricken, I gotta get out of here, or I gotta save this person, or I have to save myself. There's always a sense of panic and desperation with a lot of these comedies, and that's where it all comes from. And then, of course,
it's true. And the other part of it is that no matter what kind of trouble they get into, or how they get hit, or how they fall downstairs, or how they trip over something, or get clobbered, they all walk away unscathed, pretty much, at the end. So
no realistic consequences to any of the physical aggression you see in this stuff. And a lot of times, like you see here, there is, the romantic interest, and almost always these comedians played the underdog. They always played the ones who, never got the girl in the end.
Yeah, I know. That was very interesting, because there he's trying to make an impression, and it's he's doing everything she can to try to draw her attention to her hand or something, to recognize him there, and she's keeps looking away from him.
It's probably what a lot of the audiences found so endearing, was the fact that he was never the hero who was so far out of reach from the audience that they couldn't identify with him. I mean, identifying with the underdog, I mean, that's the key to the success of so much of this stuff, in these kinds of comedies.
No, I would say so, yeah. More like the everyman kind of personality.
Right. Just the everyman.
The guy that you root for to get the girl or to succeed.
Yeah.
In spite of everything that's against him. Yeah.
And that's what Charlie Chaplin went with too, who's actually the
Yes.
next comedian. Charlie Chaplin, I mean, he played the character who was known throughout most of the films as the tramp, the little
Right,
tramp.
right.
And it was a costume that he put together himself, the derby hat, the cane, the baggy trousers, the coat that was always buttoned too tightly.
Right.
And the idea behind the tramp was that he was the underdog. He was always trying to make his way in the cold, cruel world that always just seemed to be spitting at him in the face, no matter what his efforts were. It was just something that just never worked out for him.
Yeah.
What you have here
He was
is
always
a,
being chased by some bully or bigger guy or villain or
yeah, it
something
was
like that.
very much a Popeye and Olive Oyl and Bluto dynamic.
Yeah,
You know, you
right.
have the love interest, you have the scrappy underdog, and then you have the hulking bully who the love interest goes for at first until she sees that he's no good, that he's a, you know,
Yeah,
blowhard.
right.
We have here 3 clips from 3 different Chaplin films, and the first one is The Rink, and it stars Chaplin with his frequent co-star Edna Purviance, who was a fine comedian in her own right. The Rink is honestly like so much slapstick. The Rink, the basic premise of The Rink is that here he is trying on roller skates and he can't balance himself.
He can't balance himself, but he makes it around, and he pulls the bad guy with him.
Yeah. And Edna Purviance, as so many of the romantic interests would, I think part of that just reflects the times that they wouldn't be, you know, deep characters. But Edna Purviance, she would just look on in shock or in disbelief as she would see him tripping over himself or, you know, breaking his neck, and she would just look on and say, "Oh no," and, you know, put her hands in her cheeks and,
Yeah.
you know, and concerned for him. But she never, again, no common sense. She never does anything to try to, you know, actually getting up on his feet and, you know, to keep him going.
No, I know.
So, but that was.
But somehow he always has the wherewithal to, like, you know, go right at the bad guy on the
Yeah.
ice, even though he's not he's not an ice skater per se.
But Chaplin is very agile. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you were saying. So many of them are very athletic, and
Yeah.
what they had to be in order to pull this kind of stuff off.
I know.
You have to have really good mastery over your body, over the way that your body moves. I mean, it's played up for laughs. He trips, he falls, he stumbles. But if you take a look right here with his cane, I mean, that's gracefulness at its finest.
Yeah, it is graceful. Yeah.
You have to have
Yeah.
a certain amount of dexterity and grace
Right.
to be able to pull something like this off. And here he actually is successfully wooing the romantic interest, but as you can see, you have the bully who's
Right.
trying to
But
bring
back.
him down.
Yep. Knocking him off. This is great. They're like doing a dance on the ice.
I mean, imagine
They
the
both have to be
choreography that
pretty
goes
talented
into
to do
something like
that.
that.
I know.
That's, yeah, I mean, that's talent. That's
Yeah, I mean, even
that's very
both of
that's
them.
deep. That's planned out and with precision.
Yeah, and then he pulls his tie. That's pretty cool.
So that was
That was a good one.
courtesy of the Phoenix Learning Group, but that was The Rink. The next clip of Chaplin is called The Inebriate, and like I said, so many of these jokes are based on alcohol consumption. Keep in mind, a lot of this stuff was during Prohibition too, so there was probably a vicarious thrill. But before we get to The Inebriate, there's actually this
This
classic
is a
piece.
classic, yeah.
This is from a film called The Circus, and he's trapped in a lion cage.
I know. It's hilarious. It's like, first he wants to get out. He can't get out. Oh, he actually closes it on himself. And then he's trying to get help. And then a dog comes by. This is funny when the dog comes by and wakes up. He's trying to shush the dog, I mean, not the dog. Oh, this is even funnier at first. Going to Tiger's Den. That lion had to be pretty well tamed.
Couldn't pay me enough to do that.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
can
how
you imagine?
dedicated I am to my craft, I would not get in with a
I know, it's
lifeline.
unbelievable, unbelievable that he could do that. He had to be pretty calm.
And nobody but the scrappy underdog would be in a situation like this. You wouldn't see the hulking bully
No.
in this vulnerable position. Heaven
No.
forfend the bully be portrayed as vulnerable at all.
No. I mean, she does the only thing that a normal human being would do is faint when she sees him in there with it. That lion.
Modern day movies like The Hangover sort of tip their hats to stuff like this. I mean, even The Hangover itself
That's true.
had the tiger. Was it the tiger?
The tiger in the
In the
bathroom.
hotel room.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
Of course, these days you have CGI, so you can just digitally put in the tiger so that people don't have to be in as much peril.
Yeah. So now he thinks the lion's afraid of him or something. It's crazy. For him to think he's safe in a lion's cage is pretty amazing. I mean, for him to, what a concept, you know. Doesn't want to leave.
Another classic example of lack of common sense.
That's right. That's exactly what it is. Now he's up a pole. So afraid. He has to be pretty athletic himself to do that. I mean, he did all his own stunts.
He did. That's where you would see me, is up the pole.
What was that?
That's where you would see me.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
up the pole.
I have to climb it up there.
This next one is
The next one is he's the one with the revolving door, the
Yeah,
inebriated
yeah.
person.
and like I said, you know, this
Boy, the
one-
timing on that had to be perfect, you know.
in more ways than one. I mean, the fact that this came out during the era of Prohibition, people got their thrills out of seeing on-screen characters basically sticking it to the man, defying authority, doing things that they knew that, you know, in real life they wouldn't be able to do. So you see the bad behavior on screen, you get a vicarious thrill out of it. I think that comedians knew that too. I mean, they were savvy people. They knew what clicked with audiences. So as long as they kept this kind of thing up, as long as audiences kept clamoring for it, then they'll just take it to town. And as is the case with slapstick, I mean, the more physical pain, the idea is the more physical pain, then the funnier the joke is. So if you're gonna be caught in a revolving door, why not have the guy have a broken foot with a cast on?
I know. And then his head, his neck, though. That's pretty amazing. That he steps on the foot. I know, it was a good way for the people in the audience to get away and get good laughs, regardless of how difficult life was back then.
I mean, this is the Depression. This
is right around the Depression.
right after World War I. So there was a lot going on that
Yeah.
people, I mean, that's why movies took off. You have to wonder, would movies have been what they were? Would they still be around today if they didn't come at just the right time? You know, you have the post-war
That's right.
generation, the lost generation feeling restless. You have Prohibition, which totally divided American society.
That's right. And then you have the Depression where people were like, you know, going to soup
You
kitchens.
have the bread lines, you have the soup kitchens, you have people losing their homes, you had the, you know, the Dust Bowl. I mean, everything that was going on.
That's right.
So whatever could get you, even if just for a couple of hours,
How do you-
just
that's
away
right.
from all of that.
That's right.
You know? Movies just really came at a good time. Harold Lloyd. Harold Lloyd, speaking of comedians making an impact, Harold Lloyd is a comedian who, like Harry Langdon, may not be as remembered by name, but one of his shticks was probably one of the most iconic images from all of slapstick. He's hanging from the hand of a huge clock outdoors on the side of a skyscraper. And that film is from 1923. It's called Safety Last, which the title
okay.
itself, you know, a takeoff on Safety First. In fact, Harold Lloyd, with his look, the eyeglasses, and like Harry Langdon, he had the look of innocence about him. The idea is that he is lost, he is an innocent lost in this cold, cruel world that never can give him a break. His look, in fact, was the inspiration for Clark Kent of Superman.
Didn't know that.
When the comic books came out, Harold Lloyd was the inspiration for the physical look of Clark Kent.
Yeah.
Harold Lloyd's trademark was thrill comedy, stunts, action bits. I mean, hanging from the clock, anything
Yeah.
that really presented a sense of serious danger.
It's pretty incredible camera work for them to have even attempted to do something like that. I mean, they had to build a set where he was actually, you know, outside doing it.
Well,
But,
Harold Lloyd, I mean, he lived up to his reputation as being the stuntman. Early in his career, there was a prop bomb that exploded, and he actually lost his thumb and his forefinger.
Oh.
And so for the rest of his life, from that point on, this is before he really hit the big time. So throughout most of his well-known films, if you take a close look, I'm not sure how you'd actually, you know, how visible it would be, but he was actually wearing flesh-colored prosthetic gloves as a way of covering up the injury. So the fact that he is the slapstick comedian whose trademark is thrill comedy is pretty ironic in and of itself, because
yeah.
you know, he ended up damaging his
Isn't he
hand
the
because
one
of
also
it.
there's a scene where he's running on a train
Yeah.
to escape from a tunnel?
Yeah, running from a train, running on top of the
Running
train.
on top of the train,
You know,
so-
just as long as he keeps running, then he won't go crashing into the top of the tunnel
yeah.
as the train goes through.
Yeah.
That was his thing.
Yeah.
Was
Thrill.
dangerous stunt pieces, the
Really?
thrill. It wasn't really so much like Chaplin was very much into the characterization of the little tramp. Chaplin loved mixing slapstick with pathos.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Harry Langdon, he went for the babyface, you know, underdog appeal. Harold Lloyd, he had the look of innocence about him, but he was known for the really outrageous running on top of trains, hanging from the side of skyscrapers, walking on the ledge of buildings,
Yeah, yeah.
trying to save a sleepwalker. Or
Yeah. I saw one where he was on a ledge, or no, on a construction site. And he's almost falling off, and he's like holding on, and then another piece comes up, and he goes on to the next piece, and it's like, yeah, he was definitely a thrill seeker from that.
And hey, if it worked for him, then, you know,
Yeah.
good for him. This is a compilation of some clips from Harold Lloyd's most famous films.
Okay.
You know, if you really think about it, if you look at him, you can almost see Clark Kent coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, he does. He does look like the forerunner of Clark Kent. This is the one. This is a good one. The one where they pretend that they're coats.
That's what makes slapstick work. Sight gags like that.
Yeah.
And it's almost, well, not even almost, it is acrobatic,
It is.
what you have to be able to do to pull this kind of thing off effectively. I mean,
And-
anybody can walk around and pretend to slap somebody in the face, but to be able to pull this kind of thing off convincingly,
I know.
I mean, that's a
And
gift.
strictly by expression and physical action.
And guts. I mean,
And guts.
to be in a cage
And
with a
guts,
lion, or to
right.
be face to face with a monkey that close. So.
Right, and guts, but like no, it's so entertaining even without any kind of dialogue. I mean, it's like, that's what's amazing about it if you look at it now.
Ideally, good slapstick wouldn't need dialogue. Slapstick is so visual. The sight gags that I mean, I think that's part of the reason why Chaplin was so against the idea of talkies, is because he famously said that sound would be the death of the art of film. And Chaplin refused to make talkies even after talkies became the thing. And he held up for as long as he could, and he continued making silent films. And he finally gave in 1936 with a movie called Modern Times.
Yeah.
And he didn't speak in that film. He sang a song, but that was the first time that you heard the Tramp's voice on film. And that was also the final appearance on screen of the Tramp. After Modern Times, Chaplin made a couple of other films, but most famously, The Great Dictator, where he played a Hitler-like character. As far as playing the Little Tramp, once the Little Tramp sang on screen in 1936 in Modern Times, the Little Tramp was retired. And
I
it
know,
was the next phase of his career.
I saw Robert Downey do the movie about Charlie Chaplin.
It was scary how much he captured his essence.
Oh my God, he was incredible.
Oscar nominated.
Yeah, he was great. Well, you know that he has a lot of physical ability in him, having watched Iron Man. But
Iron Man, Sherlock Holmes.
yeah, Sherlock Holmes. That's right.
So Harold Lloyd was, like Harry Langdon, Harold Lloyd might not be a name that's remembered, but his look, his trademark was very,
Yeah.
his contributions to slapstick really can't be overstated.
No.
And of course, you have the Marx Brothers.
Oh my
And the
God.
Marx Brothers are probably the one, I'm going to contradict myself here, because the Marx Brothers they actually got their start on Broadway as opposed to film. They were already an established Broadway act. And so a lot of...
Vaudeville act?
No, actual Broadway in New York.
Broadway,
And
okay.
so a lot of their routines were very verbal.
That's right.
Like,
Right.
punchlines and
Yeah.
witty comebacks
Yeah.
and repartee and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So when talkies came around, the idea was, how can we have slapstick comedy survive in this era of sound? And so they said, let's hire stage-trained comedians. And the Marx Brothers, they were signed to a deal, and they churned out a lot of great films.
Oh my God.
Probably one of their best films is Duck Soup from 1933, and
Yeah.
my favorite scene from Duck Soup is the famous magic mirror scene, where Groucho is in his nightgown and his nightcap. He runs into a mirror, the glass smashes, and there is somebody who has broken into his house dressed the exact same way he is, trying to convince him that the mirror is not broken, but he's looking at his own reflection.
Yeah.
So that's what we have here
That's hilarious.
with Duck Soup.
That's hilarious, because even though it's funny, because they even had the same hat at some point.
Yeah,
When they
yeah.
were running back, like he would like go back and forth, and then he would like dance back and forth, and then he would like pirouette around, and the other guy would. It was like perfect timing for both of those.
So the timing was perfect, but I think what really made it work was the fact that they were related, so they actually physically resembled each other. If you take a look, if you go into Google and type
Is
in
that
Google
Harpo?
images, that's Chico.
Oh, that was
It's Groucho
Chico?
with Chico. But if you actually take a look at these guys without their makeup and without their wigs, if you see Harpo without his wig on, it is, I mean, you can't tell one from the other.
Really?
You
And
really
Groucho
can't.
too?
All of them. All of them. Zeppo, you'd probably be able to tell because Zeppo was taller than the rest of them were.
But Groucho had the mustache.
Groucho had the mustache, but I'm talking about if all the face makeup is off. The eyebrows, the mustache. If Harpo took off that blonde curly wig, you
I
wouldn't be able to tell
didn't realize
one
they
from
all
the
looked
other.
that close together.
The physical resemblance was uncanny.
But they were such incredibly separate characters when they were doing it. You know?
Well, Chico had the fake Italian accent.
Right.
Harpo
That's
never
right.
spoke and played the harp.
right.
And Groucho was the wisecracking, cynical,
Yeah.
with the put downs
Joke
and
teller.
the insults.
Yes. One after another, like rapid fire.
And this right here, this is actually one of the few Max Brothers gags that doesn't rely on
Sound.
on sound or on
Talk.
talking.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all what slapstick was in the silent era.
Right. Yeah.
This was famously repeated in an episode of I Love Lucy. Lucille Ball and Harpo Max did this.
Mhm.
Lucille Ball was wearing a Harpo Max wig, and she was trying to convince him that he was looking at his reflection.
Oh, okay.
YouTube that one, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Lucille Ball, Harpo Max, and I Love Lucy.
I'll check that out. I saw one that they did, The Crowded Cabin, which was hilarious when they were on a cruise and everybody keeps coming into the cabin. It's about 6 feet by 6 feet.
Yeah. Squeezing in about 30 people.
30 people, yeah. That was a talking one.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that. I love Day at the Races when he has to, he keeps getting a different book each time to find out what the horse's name is and where whatever the stable is. Oh, it's hilarious.
Horse feathers, coconuts,
Horse feather.
animal crackers. I
Yeah.
mean, their films were.
And even the names were funny.
Yeah, yeah. And in all their films, well, most of their films, they had the same actress playing the female lead role.
So Margaret Dumont.
Margaret Dumont.
Yeah.
And she was the one who was usually on the receiving end of
Oh
most
my
of
God,
his
does she get blasted?
zingers.
She gets blasted from it, yeah. his
But in
zingers.
real life, he had a tremendous amount of respect for her,
Yeah.
and he often referred to her as the fifth Max brother. So if Groucho calls you the fifth Max brother,
Yeah,
you know that he's got you
right.
up here as
Yeah.
far as respect for your talent and your professionalism.
Yeah, I know, because he would have to. I mean, she really put up with a lot, and she kept the same stone face.
Yeah. And speaking of stone face, you have Buster
There he
Keaton.
is, there he is.
Buster Keaton, I think, is one whose stone face was not too far off the mark from the way he was in real life. He started out as a child vaudevillian with his parents. They had an act called How to Discipline a Naughty Child, and it would, by no stretch of the imagination, ever get by today. But he would be thrown out into the audience, he'd be thrown around the stage, and it was all played for laughs, how to deal with a naughty child.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, to insert a bit of seriousness in here, is that his father had an alcohol problem, so a lot of times that would be incorporated into the stage performance. The act dissolved, and he went off into his own career, which became legendary, and he formed his own production company. And as far as his contributions to the world of slapstick, he had a good, strong streak, and he was probably only bested by Charlie Chaplin as far as solo acts and silent film comedians are concerned. Unfortunately, he also sank into alcoholism. Once his contract expired with an independent producer, he signed on to MGM. He wasn't happy with the quality of scripts he was getting. His career pretty much crashed and burned. He had suffered a breakdown at one point. He was rehired by MGM as sort of a gag man at like 1/10 of the salary that he had been making. But at least it was work. At least it was work. And as the years went on, he made cameo appearances in movies like Sunset Boulevard. He was one of the wax figures playing poker with the Gloria Swanson character. Beach Blanket Bingo, funny thing happened on the way to the forum. And
Yeah, I remember that. I was in that. That was Zero Mostel.
Zero Mostel, yeah. And his autobiography was called My Wonderful World of Slapstick. Probably his most famous visual, and actually, debatably, his most famous visual is from a short film where this one right here, where there's a tornado, and well, we'll just let it speak for itself.
Yeah.
It was actually a really dangerous stunt to pull off. because
It was a real tornado, right?
well, it wasn't a real tornado, but it was a real. All of this is like that's not a that's real wood. That's not breakable plaster like what the Three Stooges would use to avoid really hurting themselves. This was real wood, like lumber wood. Here it is, right here.
He was
So
lucky.
that was
That was
legit.
fortunate.
That was legit. I mean, they carefully marked where he would be standing.
Yeah.
So they planned it out that way. But this was at a point when his career was really in a downward spiral. And it is said, I mean, who knows, I wasn't there, but it is said that he was not in a good place at this point in his career, and that if he had been even half an inch, if he had been hurt in any way, that he really, at that point, wouldn't have cared. So it's always a strange feeling watching that clip. But let's lighten this up. I think we're going to go too serious with slapstick
I know,
comedy.
really. Let's just go, man.
Three Stooges.
Three Stooges.
Here we go. The best of the best.
That's right.
They started out as vaudeville, like so many slapstick comedians did. And what a lot of people forget is that Shemp was the original. Shemp was the original.
Shemp.
When they were a stage act with Ted Healy. Ted Healy and his Stooges is what they were called. They did vaudeville acts, Broadway reviews. Ted Healy, he abused his power a lot. They basically were his trained monkeys. And he actually had gotten into an altercation with the producer of the Broadway review they were starring in. And he said, "That's it, I'm leaving, and I'm taking my Stooges with me." Shemp refused to leave with them and stayed behind. And that's when Shemp dropped out of the act, and that's when Curly came in. And of course, that's when you have the Three Stooges in their heyday, when you have Moe, Larry, and Curly.
Comedy magic, yeah.
And by the time that the mid-1940s rolled around, Curly had suffered a stroke. And that's when he dropped out of the act, the film act. And Shemp agreed to come, with Curly's blessing. I want to emphasize that. Shemp returned to the act. He agreed to do the films. And poor Shemp. I mean, nobody can ever live up to Curly. And I think Shemp unfairly got a lot of flack for not being Curly, basically.
Who could have been Curly? I mean, Curly is Curly. Nobody did what he did, like, when he was barking at him, like, woof, woof, He was like...
Shemp really got a bum deal, because I think that if he had been the original on film, or if Curly had never needed to join the act, if Shemp had, stuck with them from their Broadway review days, I mean, who knows what could have happened as far as, fan favorites and that kind of thing.
Maybe. I don't know. Curly
Not
was
that
so
I'm sorry
good,
that we have Curly.
he would have had to come on with somebody, some other group, though, I would think. I mean, the guy's like a naturally hilarious comedian. Especially
no regrets
for
about having Curly.
pratfalls. I mean, nobody takes punches or falls better than he does.
I can remember when I was a little kid, and my sisters and I would watch the Three Stooges. I remember one of them used to feel bad for Curly, thinking Moe was mean and thinking poor Curly was always getting the short end of the stick. And I mean, he was. He was also getting the sticks bashed over his head and slapped into his face.
Yeah. You'd watch that show when you were a kid and you'd go, how could they do another one next week, Ma? Or something. Or it was like, why aren't they hurt,
Well, I know that a lot of slapstick, like we said earlier, took a lot of heat over the years for, encouraging aggressive behavior and, being responsible for kids hurting each other with stones or bricks or everything else you see. I remember in the early 90s when the Home Alone movies were huge, there was a lot of controversy about here's this kid who's, throwing bricks on top of the thieves' heads from the top of a building, and they're stepping on nails and smashing their faces with an iron. So there's been, I'm not sure how prevalent it was, but there have been outspoken people about that, saying, slapstick is, bad influence on the kids. There was a Simpsons episode that said, where the doctor said to Homer Simpson, "I'm not even going to subject you to the horrors of showing you our Three Stooges wore to the hospital," where they have all the kids who are there with injuries because of all the reenacting the Three Stooges.
I don't know. It was popular. Even when they went out and they made a movie out of the Three Stooges, that was pretty popular too.
Haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I'm very cautious about seeing it.
Oh,
It could be good. It could be good.
Okay. Here's our favorite.
Laurel and Hardy.
Laurel and Hardy. We
Laurel
know
and
that.
Hardy. They were not related, but they were teamed up specifically because of their contrasting physical appearances. The studio head saw them and said these two will work really well together. So
Yeah.
they were put together. In fact, their first film appearance, they were not Laurel and Hardy. It was their second film appearance a few years later that they established these characters. And the clip that we have here
This is a classic.
a classic one. This is
Knocked in Cement.
Knocked in Cement. They have a couple of twins, I think it is.
Yeah,
You can probably speak to that. but-
Yeah, no, there's a segment that they have. Who knew that they have twins? But they have twins that exist, and they're actually in this segment. They're what's the word? Misidentified for the people, for the other twins, the bad twins. And these guys are kidnapped and put into cement by some thugs, and because they don't know what they're looking for. So.
Did you get paid, Bert?
I sure did.
Well, as soon as we get through eating, we'll go ashore and have a swell time.
All right.
And come back broke as usual. Oh, I don't know.
They probably should have worn name tags because we don't know which one
Any
is.
news?
I think one is Alfie. I forget the other one's name.
I was reading about a fellow that started with
Maybe
nothing,
Bert?
and in 2
Bert,
years,
I think it was Bert, yeah.
Alfie and Bert with their twins.
Alfie and Bert, that was it.
saving and
That was
wise
it.
investments, just what I've been preaching to you two for years.
But they did nothing to make
Let
them
me
look
save your money.
even the slightest bit different.
You know, when we first came on this ship 15 years ago, if we'd had as much sense then as we have now, we'd have let him save our money for us, and today we'd have been sitting on the fat of the land. Wouldn't we, Finn? Right.
That's all right, but it's too late now.
My lad,
In fact, there was a Jackie Gleason show where Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton had signed up to be part of a local talent show, and they impersonated Laurel and Hardy. So Jackie Gleason
What
was
about you, Al?
It's okay with me.
Ollie,
How
and
about you?
Ed Norton
Why, it's
was Stan Laurel.
Here's my money.
And it was almost scary how smoothly they fit into those roles. They say that imitation is the highest form of flattery, and
Well, Gleason and Connie were incredible performers, so comedians. I could see them doing that. I don't know if I ever saw that episode. I should have.
oh, it's on YouTube.
I'll have to check that out.
I actually own the DVD if you want to borrow it.
A table for four.
Yes, madam. Come this way, please. I'm sorry, madam. There are no ringside tables. There are no ringside tables. I'll have to
That's
be one
all
on the
right.
balcony.
That's all right.
Laurel was always
This is
scratching his
good.
head.
Yeah, this is good. There's a drunk guy there who thinks that he's seeing double.
Whiskey and soda. Whiskey and soda.
What's the matter? What's the matter?
Say now, you four guys, stay away from me.
We're not four guys. There's only two of us. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
Cement. We're gonna put your feet in cement. And if you don't talk with the time of hardens, we're gonna throw you off the dock.
Good and hard now, Tiny. Good and hard now, Tiny.
Take him out. All right, take him out.
Okay.
They really show incredible balance. I don't know how they did it.
Like we said, acrobatic agility.
It is amazing.
Stop that part. Last chance. Now this is your last chance. Where that ring is? If you don't tell us where that ring is, over you go.
We tell you if we don't.
Maybe this will help you remember. Maybe this will help you remember.
pretty clever.
A lot of Laurel and Hardy's shticks operated on what they called the snowball principle, where you have a totally silly situation and one small thing goes wrong. And because that one small thing goes wrong, it results in something else going wrong, like what you're seeing here. You know, they start out with the problem being their feet in the cement, and then it becomes my head in a bucket, and then it becomes, you know, it just keeps that's why we call it the snowball effect. It just keeps snowballing and snowballing until it becomes so outlandish and so over the top that
Yeah, I saw another one of theirs when they're trying to escape from a prison and they're they try to pretend they're painters and they paint their uniform, they paint their striped uniforms, and then they leave the prison and cops following them. And they go and they paint everything that they walk by, like light poles, light bulbs, light poles, and then windows of stores, and what do you call it, overhangs, and everything they go by. They even paint this woman's back of this woman's dress. It's just crazy. Typical not making sense.
Did you see what I saw?
Certainly, you know who they are? They're our twin brothers, Stan and Ollie.
What did they do?
I don't know. Come on, let's get them up. Get a hold. Well, hello, Ollie. Hello, Bud. Gee, it's great to see you.
Hello, Stan. Hello, Al.
What are you doing here? Mother wrote us and told us that you two were dead. Well, we just arrived this morning on the Periwinkle.
That explains everything. They've been mistaken for us, and we've been mistaken for them.
Why, say.
a while back in the 1980s, Bette Midler and Lily Tomlin did a movie called Big Business. And it was the same premise of what we just saw with Laurel and Hardy, where it was, two sets of twins and they were separated, one of each with each pair. And it can't hold a candle to this stuff. Lily Tomlin is great. She is great, but
it's not the same.
It's not the same. It's totally not the same. Stan Laurel, his big thing was, his on-screen persona was being the whiny, why me, woe is me, the world is against me kind of expression. He was always scratching his head, and he actually was studied under Charlie Chaplin. He was his understudy.
Oh.
Oliver Hardy, his shtick was being the arrogant know-it-all, sort of swarmy and smirky. Right. But the two of them, they had chemistry. They had chemistry.
Oh, my God, without a doubt.
And speaking of the snowball principle, there probably is no better example of the snowball principle than in any slapstick film that involves a pie fight, how these things get started.
Yes.
Someone will trip and fall into a pie, and that person will get mad and then throw one, and it'll hit the wrong person. The wrong person will get mad and turn around and hit someone who is laughing, and then it just goes on and on and on from there.
Yeah.
Like this guy right here slips in the banana peel, the classic slapstick setup. They're trying to throw each other under the bus. I'm the one eating the banana.
Yeah.
So now this guy is mad.
Yeah.
And it all takes off from here.
Yep.
The snowball principle. And now she's gonna get involved.
Right. And there just so happens to be a truck full of pies over there.
Yeah, conveniently located.
Yeah.
Isn't there always?
Yep. Puts on his shoes. Yeah, they get everybody in the town involved in this. Somehow it goes into a dentist's office. Somebody in a chair. That's the best one right there. That ends it. The guy in the garbage can. It's pretty challenging.
And all this because of a banana peel.
Right. Just like you said, snowball effect. I think that's the best one at the end there. Just trying to pretend like nothing happened. Yeah. We're really getting down to the end here. So we had some few modern clips, but Slapstick Comedy is the classic comedy of
Yeah. Yeah,
no
it's just as
talking
well.
and
This is
just-
the
this is it.
this is the origins of it all. I mean, this is
That's
where it all
right.
begins.
That's right. So the best stuff is the early stuff, folks, and
Yeah.
and watch that early stuff. You can't go wrong with the Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges and Laurel and Hardy and
Even Harry Langdon and
Harry Langdon,
Harold
Charlie
Lloyd.
Chaplin, of course. Yeah.
Max Brothers.
Max Brothers.
Max Brothers. Go with the Max Brothers if you need to start somewhere.
right.
Because they had it all. They're all great.
Yeah.
So,
So we just want to thank you for watching our Slapstick Madness show. I'm Mike Wigdor.
I'm Frank Mandosa.
And Frank, I'm just wondering, wonder how those guys are doing from...
Oh, those chuckleheads who didn't even have the right
chuckleheads.
answers at the beginning. I don't know. I
Yeah,
think
I
they still are friends.
I don't know. I kind of...
Let's take a look at them
Doubt
and
it.
see what happened with them. How did they end up?
Yeah.